You know, in the movies, when the SWAT team rolls in all slow-mo, everybody looking like action figures? Yeah, this ain't that. This is Ready or Not, and it feels real, like heart-pumping, room-clearing, try not to get your teammates smoked kind of real. And it's finally coming to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series XS on July 15th. You get 18 intense missions, solo or with your squad of 5. Clearing buildings, protecting civilians, and breaching with brains, not just bullets. This ain't run and gun, it's strategy, it's tension. It's like diffusing a situation and your childhood trauma at the same time. You can fully customize your team, armor, gear, outfits, weapons, and it's got full cross-play, so no matter what system your crew's on, y'all can roll together. Pre-order now, and they're throwing in some serious gear. The M32A1 grenade launcher, MKV pistol, and 590M shotgun. PC players, you're getting all that, plus the new Los Sueños Stories DLC, free on launch day. So if you're ready for the best tactical shooter of the year, a game that rewards brains, teamwork, and clean comms, this one's for you. Go pre-order Ready or Not now, out July 15th on PlayStation, Xbox, or PC.
What's up, you little crispy-dicked armadillos, huh? How you guys feeling today, man? It's Monday. Are you ready? What you been doing? You been smelling your own breath, huh? You been smelling your cousin's breath? You ever done that, dude? Get close by your cousin's mouth and... that's air incest, bro. You ever thought about that? That smells so naughty. Should we tell Uncle? You guys ready? You guys ready for this past weekend, man? I'm ready, dude. I got electrocuted, bro. Let's get into it. Welcome to This Past Weekend. This Past Weekend. What's up? How are you guys doing? How are you ladies doing? Thank you guys for joining me. It is Monday, April 10th, and I'm feeling gratitude right now, man. I got electrocuted. I'm just going to start there. I got electrocuted. And I don't know if you've ever been down this road with electricity, but it's a violent force, man. It's like Poseidon just kind of just finger banged your butt. You know, that's how I felt. I'm going to tell you guys what happened. I hadn't been electrocuted in a long time. And you forget what it's like. You forget the power of it. Well, first I'll tell you about the first time I got electrocuted. I was young. I was a boy, and I was a young boy, and I grew up near a fairground, and a fairground is a place where the fair comes, and they have animals there when the fair isn't there, and people show animals and stuff like that, 4-H people, and it was a big field, and once a year, the fair would come, and it was not far from our home where we lived at. So me and some of the other boys from the neighborhood, my friend Clark, would go over there. And before the fair would open up for the public, they had a day where they would let us ride the rides. And they charged us maybe a quarter, I think, or 50 cents. And to get in. And you could ride as much as you want as the rides were being put up and functioning. And in hindsight, I think they were kind of just experimenting with us. But we didn't see that. We just saw it as a deal. Because to get a regular wristband for the big fair day, it was about $8. And we didn't usually have that money, so we would go the day prior, and we'd get out there. And they had a lot of, miscreants and ne'er-do-wells out there, and, men that were running from the law, and women that kind of looked like lesbians, but that probably weren't lesbians, non-practicing lesbians maybe, and we'd get on the rides, and I got on a ride, and my buddy Clark was this kind of odd boy. He'd had some issues. He hated sound. He hated sounds. He hated all just sounds, man. So he would often wear something extra on his head to kind of keep the sound out of him. He just, I don't know why he was like that. Everybody's got their thing, and he just wasn't keen with sounds, and he was more, you whispered around him. He was just he was gentle when it came to the airwaves. And so he'd often have an extra hat on, or, some couple of muffs on his ears, or he'd have his head kind of wrapped up in something, wrap an extra cloth or something around his head to keep things quiet around him. But we'd get onto the rides, and it was pretty good, some of them, it was the first run. Some of the cages would have, birds would have nested in some of the different pivots and joints of the rides, like the zipper and the tilt-a-whirl, the gravitron. I remember the gravitron as well. I'll tell you a story about that in a second. But so I was getting off of something. I think it might have been the tilt-a-whirl. And it was one of those rides where when you get off the back, you can hear a generator kind of really just rumbling. You can hear a generator really rumbling. And I'm getting off, and I was holding onto the rail, and then I held another rail. And at that point, I completed some type of a circuit, some sort of loose energy that wasn't being used by the ride, and it started using me. And I remember just like my neck got real straight, and everything I knew just felt alert. And I remember this man was like a tall black man, and everybody was tall to me because I was a child, but he could have been a basic heighted black man. He was like, "You got to get off the ride, boy." And I was like, "I can't let go," and he thought that I was taking issue with him, or that I was just being kind of just a little cunt. And so he put his foot on my back and basically just kicked me off the ride. Not kicked me, pushed me with his foot. And there is a difference. Some people are always saying they get kicked, but sometimes you just get pushed with somebody's foot. And thank God he did, dude, because it was kind of rude of him, but thank God he did, because I don't think that I would have survived. But I hadn't been electrocuted since then, since we'd been out there, experimenting on these rides. The Gravitron, I remember they had a man in there who looked like Slash from Guns N' Roses. And that was the one where you went in and you laid against the wall, and then it spun, like you were in the dryer. And it spun, and the board you were leaning against would start to levitate against the wall. Like you were really just on the last cycle of a load of laundry. And at that point, you couldn't move hardly. You couldn't move your neck or anything. You just had to really look just straight forward. And they had a DJ in the middle, a rock and roll man, and he'd be in there playing rock and roll. And I remember this guy had a bit of the pervert in him, and he would kind of show his wiener while we were spinning. And it was weird because I remember we never discussed it, because you were always, or I personally felt like I was always unsure if I was just spinning so fast that I was like seeing wieners or something, that I was seeing, adult body pieces. But now as I've gotten older, I know what happened, and that man was showing out. And that wasn't right of him to do that. I think he was just being like a party guy, but that was the Gravitron, because you couldn't move. You couldn't look and see if everybody else was seeing the same thing. So you didn't know if everybody saw it, and people, I guess, were maybe scared to talk about it. And then Clark, you didn't discuss things with him that much because he liked to be silent. He liked to just be kind of by himself. But anyhow, that was the first time I got electrocuted when I was young. And then until now, I'm okay. I want to say that. I had a lot of well wishes, people reaching out, checking in on me. Somebody asked how many volts it was. And I'm going to answer that. I don't know, bruh. I don't know if that's what you at. Like, I'm not like a tachometer or whatever. I don't know. I'm not trying to set a fucking record, dude. I got electrocuted by electricity. And I'll tell you what happened. I had a comedy set on Melrose Avenue in West Hollywood. And afterwards, I was walking a few blocks, and they had a food truck. And I don't like food trucks, man. It's all, for people out, everybody in LA and all these cities are like, oh, food trucks. But then they'll they'll make fun of people who are picking up animals on the side of the road, like the area where I'm from. And they're like, those people are fucked up, like some hillbilly grilling something in the back of his truck, But you're eating out of a fucking truck, dude. I've never eaten sushi out of a truck, like some kind of damn creep, like some kind of just damn fucking calorie lurker, So I don't like food trucks because I don't like to eat when somebody's cooking something right next to the gasoline. I mean, the gasoline in a truck is 8 feet from the fucking griddle. I don't eat around that shit. So anyway, I've had a personal issue, I guess, and I'm sorry if I'm a little fired up, dude. I mean, I didn't expect this, and it's just been a long few days. So anyhow, I saw this food truck. They were selling lobster rolls, which I don't give a fuck about those either, dude, to be honest. And so though I was being myself, and they're selling lobster rolls, and I thought they were out of jurisdiction. I didn't know that food trucks were allowed to operate on this certain avenue out here in West Hollywood. So, being a nosy SOB, I wander over because I'm thinking that these people need to know my point of view. Like, oh, you guys are selling crab or seafood out of a proper jurisdiction, really. And in hindsight, that was my fault. I should have minded my own business. And kind of around the back of the food truck, they had this. You ever seen like one of those electric things on the wall, like just an outlet? They had a huge one of those on the ground. And I just kind of wasn't paying attention. And like a huge one, like I don't know if you've ever seen I think there's a movie, maybe it could be Home Alone, where the boy is dancing on one of those pianos that's on the floor, like with the big keys. They have it at FAO Schwartz. They have it at a fancy toy store in New York City, where you can step on the keys and make the sounds, and they're like $3,000. Rich kids have them, I guess. And it was like that, man. It was that big. It was that big of an outlet, just a big outlet. And it had a bunch of cables coming out of it, and I stepped on it, and it felt like I kind of got straight, and then I just got literally crumpled to the ground, almost like if you've ever seen like one of those videos where they pour some type of liquid over a Coke can or something, and it just crumbles. That was me, man. I was like kind of crumbling, but one of my legs was staying kind of straight, and I was scared, dude. It felt like the devil was just grabbing me down, and I didn't know what was going on. And I realized that I was in unsafe territory, and thank God it just didn't last for too long. It was probably 2 or 3 seconds, which you don't think is long. I mean, if you're a bull rider, they're supposed to stay on for 8 seconds. That's so, me riding an outlet for 3 seconds isn't a big deal. But when you are unexpectedly start surfing electricity, basically, riding the lightning, it's real, man. It gets real pretty fast. And so I was scared, dude. I didn't know if I was gonna die. For a second, for one of those seconds, I probably thought that I was gonna die. Anyhow, I went home. The next day, I went to the doctor, and I went into the doctor's office. And things got even worse in there. I went into the doctor's office, and he kind of like pushed on my ribs from the front and back and made me like turn to the left and right because there was this sharp pain in my ribs. And they ended up figuring out that there's a muscle in there that got damaged, or it's called an intercostal muscle. And I don't know if maybe the electricity kind of, all met up right there in my body. But it hurt, man. And this guy was like squeezing on it. It made it hurt even more. I lost my breath. I thought I was going to die in the office. I thought I was going to die. He pushed on it and I couldn't breathe. And he's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I can't breathe." And he's like, what happened? And I'm like, he had just done this to me. I had been able to breathe when I was in there before. And I'm like, I feel like, like I'm going to be killed, And so he's like, "Just take the smallest breaths you can." Anyhow, fast forward, I slowly breathed myself back to neutral. They laid me down for a while. They gave me a Toradol shot in my butt to get some of the muscles to relax and for a little bit of relief. And then the dude says, I suggest you don't sleep alone, and I'm not sleeping with anybody right now. I'm bedding up by myself. I don't even have a cat or anything. So I'm thinking, well, now I got to find some fucking Muppet to bed up with me, like I don't want, and then I'm torn because it's like, well, what if I get some type of fucking, some straight up fucking, just animal, some female, just some girl that's out in the grind squad. I don't want some last minute chick laying up in my bed. Because then what if I die? What if I die in my sleep? Then everybody's like, well, he's fucking sleeping with this chick. And maybe that's a silly thought. My brain started racing and I got very scared. So anyhow, I've been recovering from electricity, man. The dude's like, find somebody to sleep with. And I just braved it out and slept alone. And here I am, man. I got electrocuted, but I'm still alive and I'm living to tell about it. And I'm happy you guys are here for this past weekend. The news. Let's get into the news. Also, I know I was going to do a video where I answered more questions this past week. And once I got electrocuted, that went out the window. So, there's just things you can't do, man. I mean, it's been hard to move this part of my body. There's a lot of pain right here in my ribs. I've been jacked up. I've been what I would definitely refer to as jacked up. So I'm just happy to be alive. I'm feeling a lot of gratitude. And here we are. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you guys for all the support. This is on iTunes. If it's Monday morning, later in the day, it should come up on YouTube. If you want to get onto the YouTube, you can check it out there. We also do a This Past follow-up where we'll check in with somebody who called in for suggestions, and we'll put those calls, smaller segments, onto the YouTube as well. I didn't have any music to kick off the episode this week because some people apparently can't get the YouTube in certain countries if there's copywritten music in it. So I'm trying to figure that out. We'll get past that hurdle. I'm doing the best that I can. And thank you guys for bearing with me. The news. Syria bombing. I saw that, dude. Sent a couple of missiles over to Syria. And one thing that I felt was some nostalgia. Because it's been a long time since America had bombed something, that we heard about in the news, really at a large scale like that. And it reminded me of growing up. It reminded me of in the in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, even early 2000s, when that was just an everyday practice. You would hear about it all the time during the Gulf War. You were constantly hearing about bombing, so it wasn't a big deal. But it had been a long time, and so that really kind of made me feel a little bit of nostalgia. I don't know if some of you guys felt that or not. I thought there was an interesting video online on CNN where they'd found a guy in Syria who was grateful for the bombing, or for just the show of force, just because there had been a lot of atrocities happening over there, and he felt like nobody had been helping those people. And so he was very grateful to the administration and to the U.S. military. And I thought that was interesting because you don't see a lot of that from the news these days. What else? Sergio Garcia won the Masters. I thought that was pretty awesome. I watched the last round. Beautiful course, man. I went to the Masters once a long time ago, and one thing I remember, they had ice cream sandwiches there for only $1.50. And that's a beautiful price if you're at a sporting event to get something for that price. And I felt like that was great. And I just remember, I wasn't a huge golf fan. I think this guy, Mike Weir, won it the year I went. Or Billy Weir. Billy? He might have been a British man. But I remember those $1.50 ice cream sandwiches, had about 9 of those. And I saw the hottest chick I've ever saw, some lady named Debbie, fall in the mud. And because it was a rainy time, and it's a lot of the women are wearing high heels and just kind of giraffing about, like long animals. And this bitch hit the mud, and that made me feel, it made me feel pretty good, to be honest with you, dude. To see, Debbie, when Debbie goes down, that shit made me feel pretty damn good. Reminded me in high school, I remember one time I hit, I'll be honest, dude, I hit a hot chick with my car. And I don't know sometimes in hindsight if I did it on purpose or if I could have not hit her, but there was something in it felt pretty damn good, dude, to just equal the playing field that I felt at the time. Maybe I felt low of myself, and it just, to see a pretty hot chick, take a Ford Escort to the femur or whatever that is, to the hip, that shit, it really kind of warmed me a little at that time. So, but I do also want to apologize to that young lady. I think we're out of the jurisdiction of time where there can be a lawsuit. But at the very least, I should come to terms. I might have to make an amends there. What else, dude? But I thought it was cool. I thought it was beautiful. I always wanted to take my stepdad. I got emancipated when I was about 14 because my mother and I were not on level terms. And they had a family that took me in. And the dad always loved golf. And most of my life, I've always wanted to take him to the Masters, and I'd still love to be able to do that, to be able to afford to do that one day. I hope I can get to do that. It's one of those things that kind of plagues me where it's something you want to do, but you never get around to it. Sometimes I worry that I'm not going to get around to it, but hopefully I will. What else, man? Let's see what else is happening. I haven't been watching the actual news very much, dude. I keyed in for the serious stuff. Because I'll say this, dude. I hate the fucking news, bro. I hate it, man. And I'm sorry if I'm antsy or fired up. I got electricity inside of me. And I feel like the news, it's just it's all negative. Everything on it. I feel like America's a much better country than the news makes us out to be. All they focus on is the bullshit. I feel like they're responsible for more racial bullshit in this country and more racial division than any human or group of people could be. Sometimes I wish they'd take these newscasters and the networks that sponsor them and bring them up on charges, because some of it is just bullshit. We're better people than a lot of these news networks let on that we are. I strongly believe that. What else happened this past weekend, man? I just was feeling survival. I felt a lot about survival and times where, I didn't know if I was going to make it. I had another near-death experience. I ate a bunch of quarters when I was a child. I ate about $8 and a little bit of change, maybe in quarters. And it was all change, but I don't know how much over $8 that I actually ingested. But I took in a good deal of money, and they had to go in and get it out of me. And I remember that being, I was very scared. I think from what I gathered talking to my mother, I had become envious of a piggy bank. And that's a natural thought for a child to have, that this pig can have money in it, and I want to save money. I was very money conscious as a child. We didn't have much money, so the money that I had, I wanted to hold on to. But I remember being scared about that. Another time, I guess I had to go into the hospital. The hole on the end of my penis wasn't wide enough. I had just a very small opening at the end of my penis, and and I could piss like a damn. I mean, dude, I could piss. I could piss, bruh. I could piss into a bird's mouth if the branch was only about 7 feet up. I mean, I had something special, I felt like. But it started to cause a lot of pain because as you get older, I guess you can hold more liquid, and you're trying to spray more liquid out of your body. And I remember that causing a lot of pain, and I had to go in for surgery then to get a larger penis hole. And thankfully that worked out okay, but I remember a lot of fear being around that. Another time I was very scared for my life was when I had appendicitis. I was playing baseball on a very shitty team called the Cubs, and they didn't let me play. They put me out in the field. They had one boy who was out in the field one time and ate a couple of mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms that were growing out there. This kid named Big Charles, and I don't know if he's ever really been the same kid. So this was before a lot of the fields, that maybe they properly took care of them, or, maybe cows had been on them at certain times, and, and we were dealing with the repercussions of that. Big Charles ended up using a lot of drugs, and I'm not going to say that's where it started as a right fielder, but I don't think that that's far-fetched. What else, man? But I had been playing for the Cubs, and we were horrible. And I was feeling some stomach pain. I went up to bat, got hit by a pitch. That was my big move. Couldn't swing the bat well, but would often get hit by the pitches. And I got to second base, was in severe pain in my side, and between second and third base, I fell down, hit the dirt. And we had a huge, thick, just a gristly coach, They didn't make a shirt that could fit him, Sometimes it seemed like he would, have a shirt, but then like some towels kind of sewed around the bottom of it, or have an apron on as well to hide some of himself, because he was just all body, all gut, all just fatty triceps and gut. And he was screaming at me. He ended up actually, I think, getting accused of being indecent with children. And he never did anything to me, but he did get accused. I know that. And I'm still friends with two of the guys. I actually just did an investment with one of the guys who he tried to make some, sweet gestures towards. But anyhow, I'm coming through second base, and I'm heading towards third, and I hit the dirt, man. I'm in pain. My appendix is ruptured or whatever, and I'm laying on the ground, and this dude is screaming at me to round the bases. And I can't round the bases, dude. I can't round the bases because part of my body is busted open on the inside. And he came out and was dragging me to third base, this coach. And at third, I couldn't do anything else. I stayed on the ground. I remember holding on to the bag as he tried to pull me down towards home. The referees, or whatever they're called, umpires, were angry. Other people got furious. And, it didn't matter. We lost the game anyway. We lost every game by 10-run rule. But I remember that being a really trying time. And then I ended up in the hospital for a few days because I had a ruptured appendix, and I was very scared of that. So anyhow, that's what's going on, man. That's what this past weekend, I didn't have much happen because of that right there. I do want to let you guys know coming dates. I have the Punchline in Sacramento, and that is April 21st through 23rd. May 25th through 28th, I'll be at the Side Splitters Comedy Club in Tampa, Florida. And Tampa's an old pirate town. If you haven't been over there, a lot of Spanish moss, hookers, a lot of, Florida's known for just being, it's really the appendix of America in that it just, all the gutter and the real trauma really just kind of gestates down there. So it's definitely a place for a good time. And then June 1st through June 4th, I will be in Pittsburgh at the Pittsburgh Improv. If you want to support the podcast, you can go to theovon.com/store. We got some good shirts on there. We got some artwork. We got some new stuff that'll be coming up on there this week. As well, later this week, I got a new album that'll be online of my early work. It's a classier version, and it's just all the early stuff, so I'm excited about that. All right, man, we got some great calls that came in. I want to thank everybody for being a part of this journey with me. When you guys call in with questions or concerns or thoughts, I learn a lot as well. So I'm glad that you guys are helping me. I want to thank also my buddy Adam, who's out there. There's a guy named Adam who I've never even met who gives me advice about this podcast. There's a guy named Cameron who does the artwork, who I've never even met in person, who does the artwork. There is a guy named Sherb, who masters the audio he's been doing it at 6 a.m. the past month, and I've never met him. And so the joy that I'm feeling just from, the kindness of people, it's really awesome, man. And I want to say that I feel it, and thank you guys, and we're in this together, and whatever we're doing, let's continue to do it. Thank you guys so much for the support. All right, let's get into some calls here. I want to thank you guys for hitting the hotline. That number is 985-664-9503. And that you can call in and leave a question or a comment, anything about, that you might need some guidance. If it's something I can relate to, I'll relate to it. Any basic life suggestions that I can offer, I will try to offer. All right, guys, let's get into some of that. We had some great callers call in. Here we go.
What's up, Theo? I'm calling in from Northwest Arkansas.
Northwest Arkansas, baby. That's quartz country. And Little Abner. I think Little Abner from that area. Onward.
On one of your podcasts you did a couple of weeks back, you were talking about how whenever you grew up, you didn't really have very many relationships with men whenever you're a kid. And
That's true. My brother moved to live with my grandparents when I was young. So, I was in a room, just with an empty bed across the room. And my father was very old, and they had some adults around us. Some of them were, some of them were pedophiles. I talked about that. One man kept combing his hair all the time, like he he had some issues. Onward.
I'm like the opposite. Pretty much all my relationships were with dudes, and all my friends are dudes, and have very many girlfriends. And because of that, it's kind of hard for me to talk to females. It's a little difficult to not force conversation whenever I'm talking to girls, and
I can relate to that, man. I remember when I was young, I could not talk to girls. I just felt embarrassed. I couldn't talk to girls that I liked. That was the toughest part. I was just afraid. I just had this thing built in my head that they hated me or that they just did not like me. And I remember one time, this girl I was just in love with as a child, I remember that I spit in her hair because I was so pent up with wanting to just tell her that I liked her maybe or something that I couldn't. So I just gathered every bit of genetic ability, liquid ability in my face and just deposited it onto her head one time. And I ended up getting suspended for that. Onward.
A little better at it now than I used to be. I started going to a lot of festivals, and honestly, just taking a bunch of ecstasy. The best time I can talk to women is whenever I'm rolling my tits off on some good Molly. And because of that, it's helped a little bit. I'm a little better at carrying on conversations. But I was just wondering if you've ever had that problem, and if you have, how you kind of got over that.
All right. So we got a gentleman in Northwest Arkansas. I love the fact that Arkansas, you assume people don't know any location in that state, so you just sort of label it as an area, almost as it's like, like it's part of space or something. But I appreciate the call, man. Well, first of all, if you're using drugs to talk to women, I've been there. I used to think that using cocaine would make me like a party guy. And it can help. It can help for a while, but the kind of girls I was meeting were just drug muppets, and kind of chicks that would wear those, Ewok things on their head with the long bands coming out of them, and candy necklaces, adults wearing candy necklaces and playing in the desert, and wearing fake furs and dressing up like foxes, like dirty foxes, and, doing, just, hiding ecstasy and acid inside of their bodies and boofing. I remember this one girl was boofing is a thing where you put cocaine in a straw and then you blow it into somebody's buttocks or butt. Right into their butthole, really, into the hole in their butt. And so, yeah, it was, using drugs was cool for a little bit, but after a while, you can devolve where you're just using drugs. And that can get a little scary. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea what you're doing, but if your expectations are to continue to carry that behavior on, you might run into some issues where you're just doing drugs by yourself and there aren't any girls. And that can easily happen. That can easily happen, man. It sounds like you got to find some comfort in talking to women, And dude, I went through a time where I was so nervous to talk to women. The only thing I could use were like shitty pickup lines, garbage ones. They had the one, are you a polar bear? Cause you just, I'm a polar bear. I'm about to break the ice, that garbage, verbal. And then I used to have this one line. In hindsight, this shit is horrible. I was like, let's play Hiroshima. I'll lay on my back and you blow the shit out of me. So that's where I was. I was at a point where personally, I couldn't find a comfort level where I could speak to women. And how to get through that, I would find you have to get through it, and you're going to have to practice. And what I would practice is listening. I'd practice listening, man. I think you could be thinking, because I personally used to think that I had to start the conversation every time. Sometimes you can just listen. Just listen. I mean, a lot of women, all they want is a man to listen to them and to care. And I think if you start with that, with the listening, then you'll eventually find spots where you can interject and offer something to the conversation, And also, and you can just try things also. If you want to try little things to talk to a woman, I would try little things like, what kind of candy do you like? Shit that like a 5-year-old would say, because all it's about is starting the conversation. You don't need to think or worry 3 or 4 steps in advance. Just say, hello, my name is so-and-so, just little things like that are really the starters. And you have to get your self-confidence up, because if you are thinking that women don't like you, then they're just going to sense that, because the thing is, they probably do like you, they probably do. And you just have to find some ways to be comfortable around them. So comfortability will lead to communication. So if you can get to being comfortable, you're going to be in a good spot. Now, you also, man, if you get hooked up on the drugs and that, you're going to have to start weaning yourself off of that. If the only way you can speak to women is at a rave on ecstasy, dude, that might not end well. So I don't know if you need to put on some house music and suck on a Claritin or something at the house, or start to wean yourself off of that behavior, so you can create some regular behaviors where you're actually, communicating to women in a regular way, man. And you can find a girl that you already know, and it doesn't have to be one that you're sexually interested in, and just communicate, just listen, practice, bruh, practice. And also, you don't want to be in a spot where you just take any girl that will take you. And, for years I spent time in that place where I would any girl that would take me, I would accept, I would take. Even if she didn't have some of my values or qualities or anything, I just felt so less of myself. And I'm not saying that you feel this way about you, but I felt so less of myself that I just felt like I wasn't worthy of someone who was good for me or who I was good for. I was just hopefully worthy of anyone. And that was not a fun place to be. And you end up with people being in a match that's not a real match, because if you want to end up with a woman, and if you're looking for something long term, you're going to want to find a woman that's real. And if you don't always have to agree with girls, if they don't have your vibe, dude, then screw them. On to the next one, But just if you can get in your head that you have value and you have worth, which you do, bruh, you sound like a pretty legit dude, man. I'd probably go party with you, bruh. I'd probably do a couple bumps and put on a wig and let you practice conversation on me, But you don't want to end up with someone who doesn't deserve you just because you're afraid to feel like someone does deserve you. So I don't know if any of that helps, man, but I hope I could relate a little bit. And yeah, be easy on that drugs, man. Maybe use a placebo. You could try that. You could try using a placebo. Maybe just fill your mouth with fill your mouth with a little box of Good and Plenties and see if you meet a girl on that. Hide a couple lifesavers under your tongue and see who you meet. And you can practice talking to sisters too, man. Sisters love to chat. Beautiful dark-skinned girl. And it's good practice, and you might meet a beautiful sister that you fall in love with. You might be the next Gary Owen or the next Bill Burr, who are both, great, confident men. Good luck with that, man. Let's check out another question here. Hold on.
Hey, Theo. I got a question for you. My name's Jose. I live in New Mexico.
Jose, New Mexico. I'm going to say this gentleman could be Latino. Thank you for calling, sir. You might be our first Latino check-in, and I'm grateful to have you, brother. Onward.
And, yeah, I just got a question for you. I just got out of a relationship, and I'm noticing one of my biggest problems is I'm a jealous motherfucker, and I don't know how to get past that shit. It's kind of a hindrance to my past relationship, because it's not like I'll go out and beat a motherfucker up or anything like that. It's just...
He said it's not like he'll go out and beat a motherfucker up. So he's not doing that. But he did just refer to himself as a jealous motherfucker. So that sounds pretty jealous. Onward.
I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know, like I'm not in control of some of the things that happen in that sort of situation. This past relationship, I had a extremely beautiful girlfriend. She didn't believe that any guy she met that they were trying to get into her pants. I tried to tell that to her, but just wasn't getting through. I'm a guy and I know how guys work, so that always came to bite me in the ass in the end.
Yeah, man, I'll say this. It's hard. If you're just telling your girlfriend that, it's just not going to resonate well. You can warn her, but, beating that into her verbally, it's not going to help, because jealousy equals insecurity. And when when they see that you're insecure, it makes, there's naturally, women are going to have trouble being attracted to insecure men. I've been jealous, man. I have been jealous. I'll tell you about my jealousy in just a second. Let's finish up the call here.
But yeah, man, if you have any advice or anything I should do to kick this jealousy shit, man, I don't like it. But cool. Keep up the good work, man. Podcast is the shit.
Okay, he wants to kick the jealousy, man. Well, I appreciate you calling in, Jose, because that's a brave thing to admit, and it's a brave thing to recognize. I was extremely jealous of past girlfriends, dude. I was so insecure. I had one girlfriend. I ended up breaking into her apartment and putting Nair, which is a hair removal care, into her shampoo bottle. When I found out that she had been doing sex with another man, and I think some of that could have, in hindsight, been deserving. That's also out of the jurisdiction of prosecutable offenses now. That's been about 15 years, so I'm safe to discuss that. But I was extremely jealous of that girl. I was jealous. I remember one of my first girlfriends. She'd lost her virginity to someone else, right? And I'd lost my virginity to her, And I know losing your virginity, it's not a big deal anymore. But at the time when I was young, it was a big deal. When I was at that, first sex age, early sex ages. And I remember I was so jealous for some reason that she hadn't lost her virginity to me. And this seems like a crazy thing for me to talk about. And I don't know if this can relate entirely to your issues here, but I just kind of, in a weird way, I held it against her. I was just so jealous of why not me? Why didn't you wait for me? But this girl didn't even know we weren't even a part of each other's lives. So I was so insecure about myself as a man and about being a good boyfriend or sexually confident that I, wanted to somehow erase any other sexual instances that she'd ever had, and I wanted to do it by making her feel bad, I guess. And that's just bizarre. I mean, that's because it's unrealistic, There's no way to go back in time and change things. And you can't, that's not something that can happen. So it was just me just finding any way I could to make her feel bad. And I figured if I was making her feel bad, then I would have some type of control over her, I guess. And it's sad to hear myself say that now because I don't behave that way anymore. But, when I was younger, I certainly did. And I would just get extremely jealous. Where were you? Where you been? What's going on? You didn't call, you didn't text, and I was just so insecure. I was so unconfident. I didn't have the ability to be, I didn't have any self-confidence. I didn't have any self-confidence at all. But what I could have done and what I recommend or what I suggest is that if you know what your jealous behavior is, which it sounds like you do, then if you start to feel that, do the opposite. Do the opposite action. Now, that action might be do nothing. That action might be, instead of writing, where the fuck are you? Write, I hope you're having a nice evening. But you have, if you know what the action is that's causing that, if you know what one of the actions is that's part of your issue, then doing the opposite would be the correct thing. And a lot of times it's going to be do nothing. A lot of times that's going to be absolutely do nothing. And I remember it got to the point sometimes where if somebody would ask me, how do you feel about this girl? The only feeling I even had was jealousy. Like I'd be in a relationship for a couple years and my main feeling was jealousy. Like it wasn't, oh, I love this girl. It's like, oh, I'm just jealous. I'm so caught up in myself. I'm so caught up in using anything I can to keep her because I felt insecure. Jealousy comes from fear. It comes from the fear of losing someone. It comes from the fear of thinking that, your friends are going to think you're weak if that person leaves you. Jealousy comes from fear, man. So you got to find some ways to cure that fear. There might be some self-help groups out there for jealousy or for anger management, where even if you got into one of those or went to a couple meetings, you might be able to hear someone who can relate to your story or share your story with some men in there where they can, they'll have a similar, where they can relate and share some information with you, man. But you also have to have reasonable expectations. So next time you feel like being jealous, try being supportive. I mean, it's going to be hard, but just be supportive. Start to imagine that instead of your girlfriend is doing something wrong, that she's doing something right, that she cares, that she's out, doing whatever she's supposed to be, is normally, doing as part of her daily life, and that she's thinking about you in a positive way. Start to imagine that a healthy connection can actually happen. And that's going to start to create some confidence, I feel like, inside of you. But it's some of that really comes from self-confidence and self-worth and just feeling insecure. So I wish I knew more to suggest to you, but I can certainly relate, man. I mean, I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know how to express how much I cared about these women. The only thing I knew how to express was that I felt like I had to control them. And I would use, and that was often fueled by my jealousy. So I don't know. I hope some of that, can resonate a little bit. Let's check in with another call here.
Hey, Theo. Thanks for the podcast, man, dude. It is awesome. Thank you so much, bro.
You bet, man. You're welcome, dude. Thank you for listening.
I got a question here. I live in Boston right now, and I'm thinking about going out to LA. And man, it just seems like that's the place to be. How long have you been living in LA? And I don't know. I'm just thinking about doing that move. So just give me some pointers or not. Well, do. All right, man.
How long have I been living in LA? I've been living in LA for about 14 years, man. And I'm going to say, first, I'll give you the positives and negatives from what I think. This doesn't have to be anybody else's feelings. LA is lonely to me. LA is a lonesome city. There's very little sense of community. A lot of LA is a lot of, freaks and dreamers. And I'm not saying these are bad people. I'm one of them. It's a lot of freaks and dreamers, creeps, weirdos. It's LA. It's like that porch light that's on that bugs just flock to. There's a lot of beautiful bugs out here and a lot of real seedy centipedes out here. And you spend a lot of time in your car. People talk about traffic. Traffic disconnects humans, okay? You sit in your car, your best friend, a coffee, dude. You better have some good cafe. My buddy. Because your best friend will be a coffee. You spend a lot of time in your car. So that time, you can't spend it with other people. So there's not a strong sense of community. A lot of people move here to get what they want and then to go. So you're never like, oh, there's tons of pride in Los Angeles. They don't have that. Also, there's a lot of there's a lot of posterity. It's like all the bars shut at 1:30. everything just looks good here. But the reality is that that's what it's supposed to be for. There's lights, there's cameras. We want to capture everything looking awesome, So you don't get a lot of sense of how it feels, really. There's a lot of people raising their kids in like small apartments where the kids don't have room to really get out and explore. People care more about animals here than they do about other people. You'll see a disabled Bichon, that thing will have 95 caretakers in a minute. You see a dude, beating another dude with an axe, people will just be videotaping it, and there's just not as much care for other humans here, as much as there is for like animals. A lot of people have service animals. A lot of people don't even have friends here. They just have service animals. You'll see, I saw a lady the other day had maybe 6 service dogs, dude. What the fuck? Is this some kind of service Iditarod you're in, lady? Are you sledding? How much service do you need? And it's just a lot of people that are just disconnected, I feel like, from reality. You see a lot of Latino women caring for white children. If you go to a lot of the parks here, a lot of lovely Latino motherly type of women, while a lot of the parents are off working. It's a lot of both parent work cities. So, but a lot of both parents work here, which is fine. But I'd love to one day have a wife that doesn't have to work, that can work if she wants to. She's an equal. But I think having a mother at home is important. I think it's one of the things that we're missing a lot. So there's a lot of disconnection here with that. There's a lot of gay dudes out here fighting over Instagram likes. I'll put that out there, There's just a lot of disconnection, man. There's not a lot of sense of community. There's a lot of lonely people, dude. It can be a very lonely city. So I feel like those are a lot of things you get out here in Los Angeles. Everybody has people have dogs, or it's a lot more important. That's why animal rights is so huge here, because people don't know how to even relate really to other people. Now, those are some of the things that I find about LA that are probably negatives. Positives, anything can happen here, man. You can have friends of all types. Like, it's baffling. I have so many, I know so many amazing and wonderful, talented people. There's so many talented people that I get to work with at the Comedy Store all the time, or that I cross paths with in different professions. Some of the most talented people in the world. So when I look through my phone, I'm like, wow, I'm just so blessed to know so many just superior and unique people. So you have tons of unique people here that you wouldn't be able to know in other cities. The weather's priceless. It's great. It's always great. It's so great that you don't even think about the weather. I've never looked at a weather report, ever. Been here for 14 years, never looked. Because 99% of the time, it's exactly the same. With that said, it's also like Groundhog's Day, where you don't have any seasons, you don't know what's going on. It could be May, it could be December, it's all the same. I start to miss a lot of the seasons, man. You miss the colors, you miss a night of rain where where you hear it outside and everybody's more calm and things slow down. You just don't have that here. Holidays, it's so diverse here that nobody gives a fuck what holiday it is. You don't see any decorations, because one decoration is going to offend another ethnicity or another religion. And so that, to me, isn't fun. I like more of a smaller area vibe where everybody, if it's Christmas, you decorate for Christmas. Who gives a fuck if some people don't celebrate Christmas or some people don't celebrate this or that? Let's decorate for everything. So you don't see a lot of that, man. The only time when it's a holiday is when you walk into a CVS. What are some other positives? The beach is right there. The water's cold as fuck. They don't tell you that, bro. It's freezing. It's dirty. But I was raised in dirty water, so I don't mind that. I would like it to be a little bit warmer. Would I come to LA again if I could come out here? I've been really blessed, man. it would be hard for me to go back and say I know I've met so many great and wonderful people that I feel fortunate to have in my life. So yeah, I would move here again. I think it's worth trying. I think it's worth trying anything new. I think new things can come out of making a move like that. I think it's brave to move. There's a lot of times where I wanted to move to New York City, but I wasn't brave enough to do that. And sometimes I feel bad about that, looking back on my past. And I still can, and I tried to last year. We've been out here pitching some shows, but I feel like, I feel like I would do it again. If you want to do it, man, I say do it. If you can afford it, you're still young enough where it's not going to, if 1 year isn't going to kill you and it's going to be a unique experience, do it. A city that I would recommend definitely living in, though, is New York City. I mean, you're already in Boston, so that might be too close for you. But anyhow, those are my feelings on it, man. I appreciate you guys joining me this week for this past weekend. I'm not going to have any music on the way out today for you guys. I don't know what's happening to me these days. I'm just fucking falling apart. But I shouldn't have opened my loud mouth. I shouldn't have went over to the lobster truck and let them know what I was thinking. They didn't need to know. It was a Mexican woman working in there. She didn't even I don't even think knew what I was talking about. So for me to think that these people are selling food out of jurisdiction when I don't even know the zoning, that's just sheer ignorance. So what the fuck am I talking about? But I'll say this, man, I love you guys, and I appreciate you guys listening. Let's hit the hotline again. Next week, I want to talk a little bit about family, man. If you have a family, what's it like these days to have a family? Is it hard to be a man and to run a family? To stay in that every weekend and week out? I didn't have much of a vibe for that when I was growing up, but I see now that my brother runs a household, he and his wife, and they managed to do a pretty good job, and that's been a good example for me recently in my life. But also it scares me, man. It scares me to think that, that could be part of my future. It makes me want to just kind of stay in my zone and my little safe spaces and be afraid of starting a serious relationship or of starting, heading in that direction. Sometimes I don't want to grow up. And I don't want to take that harder road, but I'm hopeful that I'll be able to, but I don't know. So I'd love to hear from you guys about, if anybody has, is dealing with a family, what that's like, some of the pitfalls. If you want to hit the hotline, you can also hit the hotline with anything else you have. And we might, get into it. That number again is 985-664-9503. Hashtag basic life suggestions. Thank you guys very much for joining me on this past weekend. You guys be good to yourselves, huh? Won't you try that? I bet you deserve it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jonathan Kite, and welcome to Kite Club, a podcast where I'll be sharing thoughts on things like current events, stand-up stories, and 7 ways to pleasure your partner. The answer may shock you. Sometimes I'll interview my friends. Sometimes I won't. And as always, I'll be joined by the voices in my head.
You have 3 new voice messages.
A lot of people are talking about Kite Club. I've been talking about Kite Club for so long, longer than anybody else. So great.
Hey, sweetheart, here's the deal. Anyone who doesn't listen to Kite Club is a dodgy bloody wanker. Do you know what I mean?
Hi, I'll take a quarter pounder with cheese and a McFlurry.
Sorry, sir, but our ice cream machine is broken.
No!
I think Tom Hanks just butt-dialed me. Anyway, first rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Second rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Third rule, like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube, yeah? And yes, don't worry, my Brad Pitt impression will get better.
In the movies, when the SWAT team rolls in all slow-mo, everybody looking like action figures? Yeah, this ain't that. This is Ready or Not, and it feels real, like heart-pumping, room-clearing, try not to get your teammates smoked kind of real. And it's finally coming to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series XS on July 15th. You get 18 intense missions, solo or with your squad of 5. clearing buildings, protecting civilians, and breaching with brains, not just bullets. This ain't run and gun, it's strategy, it's tension. It's like diffusing a situation and your childhood trauma at the same time. You can fully customize your team, armor, gear, outfits, weapons, and it's got full cross-play. So no matter what system your crew's on, y'all can roll together. Pre-order now, and they're throwing in some serious gear. The M32A1 grenade launcher, MKV pistol, and 590M shotgun. PC players, you're getting all that, plus the new Los Sueños Stories DLC, free on launch day. So if you're ready for the best tactical shooter of the year, a game that rewards brains, teamwork, and clean comms, this one's for you. Go pre-order Ready or Not now, out July 15th on PlayStation, Xbox, or PC.
What's up, you little Christmas criminals, bruh? Huh? You little pancake Neanderthals, you guys ready, bruh? Are you ready, man? Jesus back. You feel him? JC in the building. Hallelujah. Man, look at that hair coming in hot today, boy. Damn, I'm feeling a warm front on my scalp, daddy. I got that freaking Kate Gosselin bangs with that caramel apple back slap on the neck. I'm feeling fired up, man. Happy Easter to everybody. You guys ready? I'm ready. Welcome to This Past Weekend.
This past weekend.
Old Time Magazine. That is Born and Graced, man. That is Born and Graced. And that is music. And that is, that's two things that I feel like I am, dude. You know, you don't have to be religious, to have faith, I don't think. And I don't think you have to be religious to feel born. Because, you're obviously born, dude. Prove you weren't born. Okay? Show me pictures of, let's say, your baby crib with nobody in it. Doubtful. And also graced, man. If I look around in my life enough, man, I feel that I've been graced. I feel that I've been graced, man. I know I've made a lot of poor choices that haven't ruined me, that I've been able to bounce back from. I've had a lot of experiences that weren't good, that I've been able to bounce back from. I've been forgiven by people for wrongs that I've started, that I've created, that I've done, and I feel graced, man. I'm offered grace daily. Daily, I'm offered grace. I'm graced with the ability to be out here on Earth, dude. Think about that. Okay, try existing on another planet. Okay. People are always saying, well, life isn't a miracle and it's science. Bitch, okay? Mars, dude. We can't find a motherfucker on Mars. They're always out there taking footprints from 70 miles away and telling us it's something. Dude, you can eat a can of fucking Russian piss with all that. I don't believe that, dude. Until they find a young buck or somebody out there doing sex on another planet. Man, I'm just saying, we're graced, bro. We're graced with the opportunity to be here on Earth. And that's what I'm feeling, man. Happy Easter. Happy Easter to you guys. It is, let me see the date here. It's Monday now, April 17th. And it is 2017 is the year. And we're still here. We're still here. There's been a lot of things that they say could get rid of us. I think people were a little worried North Korea could be one of them, but them dudes can't get it up. Okay? Huh? Them North Koreans can't get it up. They can't get erect. They just basically doing a little bit of light Easter fireworks. When y'all shouting out at the mouth, but y'all can't pop off. And I've had experience with that. definitely some times in my life where I couldn't get physically erectile in the, in the dick and the lower penis. And one time I remember feeling very embarrassed with this young gal. I don't remember her name, kind of taller, big shoulders, had kind of the shoulders of a man really, and the rest of more of a woman's body elsewhere. And I was really struggling with some erection. And she's like, well, I have a friend that can definitely get you erect. And I was, weary about it because I'm already 0 for 1 sitting there with this, a little bit of a blondezilla, a little bit of a blonde squatch. She was definitely, she could play tight end for maybe a 10 and 11-year-old boys team. And she, but she was of age, she was over 18, but I'm just saying with her, size and kind of, upper, she had a lot of might, upper might around the collarbone. And she could have really set it off, I think, there in for a boys team around the 10 and 11-year-old age range. But anyhow, so she phoned a friend, dude. She got all game show on me. She phoned a friend, this redheaded gal who was kind of tatted up, and she came over, and both of them tried to really get me erect for a while, and that didn't pan out. So that was just double the disappointment, some shame really I felt, and I didn't want to let the second girl down. That was really, I felt like she was letting the second girl down via my erection or lack of, but that was kind of a trying time. But anyway, man, happy Easter, dude. I'm coming to you guys from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I hope that you guys had some opportunity to spend time with family or friends. If this audio isn't really solid, well, guess what, dude? You can eat a fucking small bag of cat cocks because I'm doing the best I can. I literally have my microphone set up on a cookie tray, and I'm doing the best I can here from my brother's home in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We'll get into some personal stuff here. I'm going to come in at 9 months sober when you hear this. And I know some of you guys party and, do acid and, are doing types. I know some kids are doing bud acid now where they're doing LSD and they're, suppository type of deal. What else? Boofing. That's blowing cocaine into your butt. And you can watch that on YouTube if you want to see some of that, what the kids are doing. I know that some people are doing other types of things, blindfolding themselves and getting high and, jogging and shit like that. But I'm not doing that right now. I'm just, I decided I'm going to stay drug free for a while. So that's where I'm at in my life. I don't judge anybody that can still party at this moment. Hell, I've done some I'm in Baton Rouge right now. First time I ever tried some cocaine was over here in beautiful Baton Rouge, Louisiana, I think. And I went for a run. I thought it was a performance enhancer. I'd heard that. And I guess at the time I was training for a half marathon. And so I caught me a couple of grams of, that white donkey dust, a little bit of brain kick. And I went for the longest run I've ever ran. I ran for 11 miles because I never ended up doing the half marathon because I got into cocaine. Nothing will keep you out of a marathon like a little bit of, that white, a little bit of Saturn sugar, So I remember just running along the railroad tracks, and I would stop and do a couple bumps, and I did a couple grams and ran 11 miles. And then I jumped in over a fence into some people's backyard, and they were doing marshmallows. It was kind of I don't know if it was maybe a family event, but they were older. This was the older people were still awake, drinking beer and doing marshmallows on a fire. And I hung out with them. I didn't have a shirt on. I was sweating from the run and from the drugs. And I sat there and ate a good deal of marshmallows, high on cocaine, and spent some time with them. And they were LSU Tigers fans, LSU Tigers, and so was I. So we had some common ground there. But anyhow, I've had some experiences here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm down here spending time. My family is here. I've been in Louisiana all weekend. I flew into New Orleans. A friend of mine was disc jockeying, playing sounds, hitting, doing the hits at a bar where the people didn't give a fuck. I'll say that. My friend is a good DJ, but the people didn't care, and that was interesting to watch. A man really putting his all into the wheels up there, and seeing people not really wanting to back that ass up. So I was trying to be supportive of him. And I feel like I had some good times with my friends. Then I went to my family's house. We did crawfish. I had 2 crawfish boils this weekend. If you're not familiar with crawfish boiling, crawfish are basically, they're like the Stephen Avery of shrimp. They real gutter. They seem like they, kind of got their GED. They kind of dirt. A lot of them carry a little extra dirt around the neck. They're kind of the Scottish of sea life. They're basically the Scottish of sea life, and they're a little bit nasty. But you boil them up, you put some good seasoning on them, and man, it's a real treat. And people get together, and it's more about the conversation you have while you're eating them. People sit there and you're making sounds around each other, and your eyes are really, you catch a strong hit of a peppercorn to the back of the throat, and that'll light your eyes up. And so we did some of that, man, and just seeing each other be in pain and share their feelings at the same time. That's really what it's about, and that's what brings people together. So I enjoyed that, man. Spent some time with my family. My brother has a really nice family here in Baton Rouge, dude. And to me, it's been really inspiring in my life. I didn't grow up with a family connection. We grew up together. We had four children total, and my mother. My mother worked a lot. She delivered newspapers and baked goods regionally, newspapers locally, and BGs regionally. Dropping cookies and things like that out in the area, out to people in different close states and that. So we, us kids, were around each other, but we didn't have a lot of connection. And I didn't really have a sense of a family. I didn't think a family meant anything, But it's that whole perception has changed a lot as my brother, has 3 children now, and watching him create a family, has really kind of inspired me to maybe one day be able to do it. I have a lot of fear surrounding that, it just feels like a ton of responsibility already, even though I'm not even near there, but it just makes me a little nervous, man. Just to know if I can, show up every day for my family. You got to wake up, not just for yourself, and I have been in most of my life, I've been just selfish. I think about myself. I thought about myself mostly. Most of my life I've spent thinking about me. And I think a lot of that reason is, when I think back on my life, I've been selfish because I was scared, man. To be honest with you, I was scared that nobody else was thinking about me. So one of the reasons I really believe that I did think about only me was because in my heart I thought if I wasn't thinking about me, that nobody was. And thinking, realizing that now, and I'm not in that place now. I don't feel like, I've been, trying to, get help and get past some of those childhood ideas and thought processes, so I can grow up. But that's a tough one to realize, when I start to really realize that, I was selfish out of the fear that if I wasn't thinking about me, that nobody was. It's kind of sad. It's kind of sad to think that I went through a lot of my childhood that way, and my young adulthood that way. But I'm happy to feel that I'm not in that place anymore. And I'm happy to share that, to share just some of those thoughts now and let you guys know what I went through, man. But my brother has 3 beautiful children. One of them just learning to walk. And this little baby is, she's a tall baby. I don't know how old that is. I haven't spent a lot of time around babies because I'm not a pervert or I'm not a pedophile. I babysat overnight. I have 2 nieces that are older, 9 and 7, and I babysat them overnight multiple times, 0 instances or desires. But this baby is a tall baby. I can't even, maybe 2.5 feet tall. I don't know how tall that is really, but anyway, and she's just learning to walk, and she got big legs on her. She got real hardy in the and kind of in the ass and in the glutes and front leg ass, whatever that area is. That's kind of the top of your legs, but not your ass yet. Your leg, basically your leg ass. But watching her walk, it's like kind of like I don't know if you ever seen a big girl eat a snow cone in the rain, but that's kind of sexy. No, I don't know if you've ever seen a kind of a hardier girl, maybe, I don't know if you've ever seen kind of a thicker girl get off of a tilt-a-whirl or a gravitron at the fair. And these are some rides that I referenced last week, but I don't know if you've ever seen a big girl get off of a fair, a dizzy whirler or one of those tilt-a-whirl rides and, not have her senses about her and kind of wobble and, kind of lean with it, rock with it on accident. But that's what it's like watching this baby learn to walk. It's like a big girl that just got off of a tilt-a-whirl. And it's funny. It's cute. And it's funny. It's funny to watch. And it's interesting, too, when a baby's learning to walk or when they take their first steps, everybody cares. Everybody's like, oh, she's walking. She's walking. This bitch is out trotting. This bitch is trotting. But it's crazy that the rest of your life you walk and nobody gives a fuck, dude. Like it's not like my mom texts me again 15 or 30 years later and is like, are you still walking? How's it going? Or your grandmother calls and like, good to see you. I was there for your first couple ones. Are you still using your legs? Nobody gives a fuck the more you walk. But it's just interesting how everybody gives a fuck when you first start walking. But the more you walk, people give less fucks for your ability to do leg work. Anyhow, man, it's been a joy to be around my family and to be inspired by my own brother to be able to create a family of my own one day. I have a lot of apprehension surrounding that, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful to be able, to continually, surprise myself with who I can be. And that's one thing that I think is neat about Easter, man. It's about a rebirth, dude. Jesus struck back, bruh. Whether you think he was a savior, or whether you think he was just a early hippie, or whether you think he was just a straight up magician. I mean, he could have been a David Blaine, bruh, But either way, the dude inspired people. And either way, he struck back. A lot of people thought he ghosted, and then he literally ghosted them, bruh. Showed back up, And I like ghosts, dude. As a matter of fact, I love ghosts, bro. I love ghosts. I've always loved ghosts. And I mean, they busted a man in our town trying to be a ghost. I've told you guys about that before. They busted a man running a motel hotel, and he was trying to be a ghost, and they busted him. And I was infatuated with ghosts since I was a child. Love ghosts. Always love ghosts. I love ghosts pretty much. And that's like Jesus struck back, man. And that's what a lot of stories in life are about. Everybody thinking you're down and out, and then you roll away to rock in front of the cave like JC's, he hit him, and you pop back out. And I hope that, that I continue in my life to be kind of reborn into new ideas, and things that I'm afraid of at one point, that I'm amazed at how I get reborn into a new mindset that I'm not afraid anymore. And that's one cool thing about getting older. I know some of you guys have dropped some calls onto the hotline about, being scared and being in your early 20s and not knowing direction and stuff like that. Bro, just find a little bit of faith. It doesn't have to be in a specific religion, but it can be in a higher power of any higher power you create, and just have some faith that things will be revealed to you. A new mindset can be revealed to you, and you can strike back, dude. You can Jesus a little, bruh. You know what I'm saying? Lean with it, rock with it, bruh. Sometimes you don't got your legs, but then that tilt-a-whirl, that tilt-a-whirl fever wears off of a big girl, and she out trotting now. Now she's out with her girls, and they out there trotting and drinking liquor. So I'm just happy to continually be amazed and have new ideas reborn into my mind, man. And happy Easter on that note, dude, to everybody. I watched some kids look for eggs and do all of that, and they were fighting over the eggs, and some people got very totalitarian. I was at an Easter egg hunt on Saturday, and this was interesting. We hit all the eggs for the kids, for the children, and then we go back out there a little while later. One of the neighbors, I guess, who was probably an alcoholic, had come over, opened up half the eggs in the yard, dude, eating some candies, leave wrappers about, and just jetted, bruh. Just jetted. I mean, that's some... Who does that? Who wanders into a children's Easter egg hunt, liquored up, snacks out on half them huevos and jets, bruh? Knowing that this shit is for children? Dude, man. If I got one request for the Jesus Christ hotline, it is to fire some lightning at that little devil, okay? Because that's no way to behave, dude. I mean, I've made some poor choices, but that is just straight up gutter. Eating just out the that's dark. That's the dark arts. Let's crack into some news, man. Did you know that Emma Morano has left the earth? She was alive for 117 years old. She was the last human that was born in the 1800s that was still alive, and she's gone. She just passed away, I believe, this past weekend, and she accredits her longevity on this planet to raw eggs and cookies and to getting out of an abusive marriage. And that's... we can all be in some abusive relationships, I mean, I've been emotionally abusive in relationships that I've been in, and I feel lucky that some of them gals ain't in the relationship with me anymore. So that's, I can associate with that. But that's what she accredits her 117 years to. So if you're cooking your eggs, dude, you might want to change that up. If you vegan or if you're non-cookie-tarian, you might want to cookie up. And if you're in an abusive relationship, dude, you might want to take those boxing gloves off and step outside of it, bro. You could live to 117. I don't know if I want to live that old, bro. At that point, because here's the thing, even your own kids have probably died. So you're sitting there talking to people who you fucking don't... There's no way you could know any of them or what they're talking about. I mean, every moment of your life must feel like you're at the DMV. You're just kind of waiting for shit, and you don't really know who else is fucking around, and you're 100 and something years old. But kudos to her, man. Emma Morano, an Italian lady, 117 years old. I'm going to drop some dates on you guys. I'm going to get into a few calls. I'm not making this a long cast tonight because it's Easter, and I want to get some rest, and I got to fly back to Los Angeles in the morning. I'm going to let you guys know I'll be at the Punchline in Sacramento this weekend. That's April 21st through 23rd. I will be in Tampa. That's May 25th through 28th at Side Splitters. I'll be in Pittsburgh at the Pittsburgh Improv June 1st through June 4th. I will be at Gotham Comedy Club in New York City, June 23rd through 24th. And then we got a new show that we're announcing where tickets will go on sale, I believe, next week or in a week. And that's going to be in a small town of Wyoming, Illinois. And that's going to be July 30th. Actually, no, that's going to be June 30th. I'm sorry, June 30th. That's going to be a fundraiser that we're doing in that town, so I'm excited. But that's what's going on, man, and I'm happy you guys are here with me. I hope your Easter was great, and we're going to get into to a couple of calls so I can go to bed, honestly, man. All right, man, I'm tired as a damn Amish birth canal, guys, so let's crack into these questions. Here we go. This is from Montana, America, fella right here.
Theo, this is Brandon from Billings, Montana. I am calling because I wanted to get some advice.
Billings, Montana. I actually semi-witnessed a man jump out of a window, die to his death. He landed on a Starbucks, actually, in Billings. And you know what? I think the Starbucks even stayed open. But anyway, thank you for calling, Brandon. Onward.
How to get my wife to start giving me some more head. I mean, I do things in return to her. I go down on her. I even eat that little asshole.
Okay. Wow, buddy. If you're eating that little beehole, man, if you're snacking on that balloon knot back there, I think you got to use a washcloth first. I'm just going to throw that out there. You want some more head from the lady. All right, onward.
But I get a little half-ass blowjobs. She complains about her jaw. You know, those kind of things. Give me some advice. Love to hear back.
All right, man. All right, appreciate you calling. Blowjob ailment, you got issues here. First, you know, this reminds me, actually, I met a gal one time at a casino, and we kept in touch, and then she came to visit. And before she came in town, she'd had some type of surgery, and she'd broken her jaw right before she came to visit me. And she couldn't open her mouth all the way. So if we tried to do some oral sex, I kind of had to really kind of feed my penis in there a little bit and go from there. So I guess I have had some experience. You know, I can share that I've had some experience with some issues there. Kind of had to baby bird it in there a little bit into this gal's mouth, this Canadian gal. And that was really pretty wild. She also had she had fake hair that was kind of cheaply made, could have been made in China, and it kind of fell out around the house a bit, and that was alarming. But if you got an issue with the wife not doing it, man, first of all, in some places it's not even allowed. So you can find some gratitude there that even bad blowjobs are allowed apparently where you live. So that's good. You could maybe leave some things around the house. You could hide a couple cucumbers around the house, or maybe get a sign, says blowjobs are welcome, or you really want to do something, dude, be brave. Why don't you get her maybe a strap on, or, external penis attachment, and you give her one, fire up on a little piece of rubber candy coming off of a belt that's around her waist, and maybe show her exactly what you want. Because if you're down there really doing some carnal work, then it does seem like you don't deserve it, but it seems like you want to be rewarded. So maybe that's something you could do, man. I think a blowjob's nicer as you get older, because it just it's a different type of touch, and it's exciting to a man to see that and to be a part of it. Part of the blowjob is just seeing it occur. And that's really maybe what you're wanting to see. But I commend you for sticking it out with your wife and, wanting to figure it out and not resorting to getting external blowjobs or, or jerking off into fake mouths. You can buy a lot of these fake mouths on the internet, and I don't recommend that. I like the way you're keeping it there within the family unit. I mean, if I am talking about family this evening, and blowjobbing going to get you a family, that's for sure. You're going to have to go guts on that. You're going to have to get up in the guts if you want to family up. But if you're just looking to get a little more head, I would suggest, leaving some longevity type vegetables, cucumbers, some eggplants, that's the new emoji there. So maybe hide an eggplant in the bed and see how that, what that starts as. Get a sign, maybe graffiti your house, dude. Hire a couple of, dark artists to maybe, maybe write, "They ain't sucking dick around here," or something on your garage one morning. Maybe just even start the conversation. You can start it externally by having some local ne'er-do-wells help out. Now, Montana, you want to keep her hydrated, because that also is the kind of country where you can get dehydrated pretty quickly. But once you call us back maybe in a couple of weeks and see, let us know how that's going, and if any of these suggestions are helping out. But you want to create the conversation. You want to make it a comfortable conversation that you guys can have together, and just let her know you enjoy it. Let her know you enjoy it. I would maybe send her a card that says, "Thank you for the blowjobs you give," and maybe that'll just inspire her to want to do more. Get her one of those blowjob classes, or there's probably videos on the internet, YouTube links you could send her, but sending a lady a link is it's not very classy. I'd get her an actual instructional course. They got some ladies that do lectures and stuff, and even gay men, that do lectures. Or maybe introduce her to some gay men. I mean, they do blowjobs, and maybe they could help inspire her. So I'm going to say good luck with that right there. Moving on.
What's up, Theo, man? My name's John. Big fan of the podcast, dude.
Thank you, John. Thank you for listening, man. I do appreciate it. Continue.
I had a question for you. You've mentioned, I think in your act and in several of your podcasts, that your brother tried to, have sex with you when you were a kid. And you also... Yes,
I'm going to say yes to that. My brother, developed this heavy desire to do sex with me when we were children. It was kind of... he realized I kind of had a hole in my butt, and he got early onset erections. I've discussed that before. Onward.
Also mentioned, I think a couple months ago in your podcast, that you were out visiting him and his family. And
I am. I'm at their home now. I'm actually recording this at midnight, right under he and his wife's room. So I guess this is interesting. Let's hear more.
I'm just thinking, is that something that is addressed? You guys ever talk about that? What does his wife think about that? I just find it pretty strange that he tried to do that to you as a kid, and it seems like that would create issue for later on in life, but it seems that you guys are pretty close, so I'm just wondering how you guys go about that.
Well, I'll stop it there and just say that, I think we had tougher things to deal with. There was, it was a tough neighborhood, and in hindsight, it was one of the few things that kind of brought us together as children. It's one of the few memories we have as young children where we spent time together. Was me really hiding my butt from him. It is very strange. I agree. Do we discuss it now? Here, you're almost done. Let me finish up this question.
All right, man. Keep up the good work. Love the podcast. I'm going to come see you out in Sacramento.
Oh, good.
April 23rd, I believe. Looking forward to it.
Yes, you are, man. That's this weekend. I'm excited about that. Do we address it? We have. We've discussed it. There's been forgiveness offered and forgiveness accepted on both sides. and also just an understanding that we were children. You know, I have some nephews from a different family, you know, from kind of a surrogate family, and I walked in on two of those young fellas nude in the bed one time, you know, just laying on top of each other's bodies, you know, and they weren't gay children. They were just, you know, young children, and they had a lot of feelings in their skin at the moment, you know, and their bodies just feel fancy to each other when you're young and you don't know anything, you know. We had a boy in our town used to kind of put his dick in the ground, and that was bizarre, you know, and you'd see him a lot outside, always just laying on the ground, and you knew what he was doing, you know. He was just doing kind of dicking down in the earth a little, and that was just him being young. And so my brother and I have discussed that. It is funny sometimes. I'll see, you know, his kids kind of fighting or slapping each other on the butt, and I'll kind of nudge them a little, and that'll take us back to those times. A lot of that was because we shared bath time together. You know, a lot of families will do group baths when you're young with the children. And my brother was just weird, man. He got early onset erections, and it's hard I can't penalize him for that. And I really can't penalize myself for being kind of a hot piece of ass when I really, you know, if I want to think about it like that. I mean, I had another time where one of my good friends and I were under a blanket kind of feeling each other's rib cages and feeling erotic, you know, and now that's weird when I see him because he doesn't wish to discuss it. And he doesn't want to admit that, you know, we were both sitting under these blankets being erect and just kind of feeling each other's ribs, kind of like a blind man at an instrument. But that occurred, and some of that's just childhood stuff. Does his wife know about it? That's a good question. She's heard some of my comedy where I do talk about it. I don't know if she's heard that bit yet or not. And if he comes to me and says that she wants to discuss it with me, I am open to discuss it. It's not some stuff sometimes that I want to relive because I just realize that we can't go back in time and undo some of that young attraction. And in a way, I kind of, you know, I'm not grateful for it because it was hectic, dude. You know, knowing that, you know, it was like a game of freeze tag that was going to cost you really some, you know, whatever joy you currently kind of held in your ass as a child, you know, or comfort, whatever. You know, I was worried it was going to cost me some comfort because my brother really, he came at me with that erection, and it just was what it was, man. We've kind of moved past it. I appreciate you asking about it because, you know, I do think it is interesting. And I think a lot of children a lot of people now when they were children had some things like that occur. You know, one of my sisters used to kind of do little strip teases when we were waiting in the car. When my dad would go inside to, you know, usually he would go get us a sack of pie slices from the Burger King. And one of my sisters would kind of do some light erotic dancing sometimes in the back of his car, and that shit was, you know, I don't know what the hell it was, but in hindsight it was kind of weird and alarming, I guess, but at the time it was just children, and, you know, I just look at it as something that kind of, you know, we did and we were kids and we didn't know. If he tried it now, that'd be a bigger discussion, you know, and I don't think we'll resort to that unless, you know, the damn world's about to end, or unless, you know, he's married now and we don't have really a lot of those feelings for each other, you know, anything like that. You know, our feelings now are just platonic, familial, and I'm grateful that we went through that in a way so that if he sees that with his kids, he kind of knows how to navigate it. So we kind of took that bullet for our family, I think. But I appreciate you asking about it, man. We got one more question here.
Hey, what's up, Theo? My name is Zane. I live not too far from you. I live up here in Ontario, California.
Ontario, California. They have a comedy club out there, Ontario Improv. where I don't perform that much, Zane, but maybe in the future. Thanks for calling, bud. Onward.
And I just got done listening to this latest episode. You said you were going to take some calls on family life.
Yes, sir.
Me and my lady, we've been together for 11 years. She's going to be 2 this May. And
okay, you might not have been able to heard that there. It cut out. He has a child now that's going to be 2 this May. He and his wife, who have been together for 11 years. Onward, Zane.
I mean, I just want to tell you, man, having a child and working for a family, I mean, kids aren't easy, but they're not as hard as everybody makes it seem. And, you know, I work hard. I've been, you know, I've worked harder now since she's been born than I've ever worked, but, you know, it's all worth it. And, you know, you seem like a good dude, and I wish you nothing but the best. I hope you find what you're looking for. And if you're thinking of starting a family, I think, you'd be great at it. You know, it's, you know, all they need is a little bit of love and some diapers and food. You know what I mean? And, take care and good luck, man. Later.
Man, thank you for that call, dude. You know, and I know that wasn't a question that he was asking, really. It was just a statement. But I wanted to share that because I thought that was just a nice call. It was a call of encouragement. And I need those, you know. I'm not saying call and encourage me or, you know, but I do get some calls that are just supportive. And I want to say I appreciate that, man. And this call kind of touched me a little bit because you can just hear in his voice, you know, that he cares. You know, that you could hear some pride when he talks about showing up. He's got a 2-year-old little girl. I mean, that's beautiful. You know, I don't know if you've ever, just spent time around a 2-year-old little girl, but I mean, it's about the sweetest thing when they're behaving, about the sweetest thing you can imagine. And just to hear this man, I'm married for 11 years, and he's got a 2-year-old girl, and it inspires him to work hard and to keep going. And that's cool, man. It's cool to hear. I think partially because, you know, I don't know how my dad felt about me. You know, my dad was 70 when I was born, and he was 86 when he died. And I never, you know, we just never got to have those conversations. By the time I was old enough to ask him what it was like to be a dad or some of the joys that he had when he was around me as a child, he was gone. So it's just nice to hear just a man excited about his family. You know, we see all this stuff about how families don't work and how marriages don't work. But what we don't hear about sometimes is just we don't hear a man say that he enjoys it and that it's hard work, but that it brings him some of the greatest joys of his life. And I think about it, you know, and I think about starting a family now. I never thought about it before, dude. And that's been one of the gifts of me over the past 9 months of not drinking and partying for me has been having time to reflect and having time to listen to other people and really hear other people and hear some of the joy and hear some of the trouble that they go through and to kind of learn from it or see how some of those experiences would feel in my own life. And starting a family is something that I've thought a lot about. You know, it's scary to me. It's scary to me to not think about myself sometimes. You know, to think about that, to imagine that the part of my life where just me and my joy is over, you know, and that it's selfish to think that I don't want to, you know, provide or create a world for someone else because I'm not done creating my own world. And that's okay, but at some point I have to start to let that teeter-totter start to tip, you know, if I want to have a family. And the you know, and this year I've started to feel like I would like to, you know, and it's scary. It's scary to think about what kind of dad I would be. You know, after, would I be able to even be married for 11 years? Dude, that sounds... I mean, I haven't been in a relationship in 10 years, you know, because of commitment issues that I have and stuff. And so just to hear, you know, that there's somebody out there that's doing it and that is, you can hear the joy in his voice. It's inspiring to me, man, you know, because I think families are important. You know, if I could go back in time and have anything And my life's been filled with a lot of unique experiences, man. I've been really, really blessed. I've been really graced. I've had a lot of grace in my life. But if I could have almost anything, when I really think about it, it would be to go back and have just a childhood where I felt loved, because I didn't have that. I had a lot of supplementary love that came from families that took me in. And I love my mother and I love my father. And I think they both did what they could for sure. And no one will ever replace my mother or father, But for some reason as a child, I just did not feel loved. And it's just really nice to hear somebody, that's doing that for their child, and to know that that child has a chance to grow up in that environment. So I guess I just wanted to kind of play that and share that and just let that thought be out there. And to inspire anybody else that's thinking about it, if you're struggling or if you feel like somebody else needs inspiration in that realm, just fucking share it with them, man. Don't be afraid to drop your joy on other people. A lot of my life, for some reason, I've even felt scared to feel joy. I think because I felt so much misery or pain as a child, and I felt so insecure and so just low self-worth, that when joy came around, the possibility of even telling somebody else that I felt good, that was scary to me. And sometimes it still is, man. Sometimes it's still scary to let people know that I feel good, when I do. And that's a new thing for me, is learning to let people know that I feel okay. Because for a lot of my life, the only thing that I knew how to feel and to navigate was that I didn't feel okay, So that's another thing, man, where I'm kind of being a little bit reborn right there in that space where if you'd asked me a year ago, dude, do you think, you'll have, would you be in a year from now, do you think you'll be in a space where you will have days where you feel okay all day? I probably would have said no, but the last year of my life's been kind of monumental. And the fact that I'm feeling some opportunities to have some of my feelings be reborn and have some just new ideas of happiness revealed to me. And a lot of that's happening through other people just sharing their joy and me being able to actually hear it and feel it. So anyhow, thanks for calling in. We got some other calls. I'll get to them next week, man. But thank you, Zane. Thank you, Blowjob and Billings. And thanks for asking about the sexuality with my brother. And, part of it's, it's funny to think about the times we had. I mean, you want to talk about hide and seek, dude. That was about a year and a half of hide and seek that was full throttle, dude. That's fast and furious. That's the Tokyo drift of hide and seek when your brother's trying to do sex to you in the house. I'm going to take us out this evening on a song here. This is Victory Theme. That's all I know about this. I want to thank you guys for joining me on this past weekend. Continue to hit the hotline. I'll post the number at the bottom of the YouTubes. This will be on iTunes and then on YouTube's later in the day on Monday. Happy Easter. I hope it was a good one for everybody. I really do. And I appreciate you guys so much for just kind of going on this journey with me and learning as we go. Damn, boy, I'll say this, dude. Nobody could run 11 miles on a couple grams of cocaine like your boy right here. All right? really just kind of sometimes what I'm doing right here. But I'm grateful for you guys, man. You guys have a wonderful week. Happy Easter, bruh. Enjoy it. Get to it. Get at it. Be good or be good at it. But take care of yourself, man, and be good to yourself. Once you try that, I bet you deserve it, man. You guys be swell, bruh. I'm out.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jonathan Kite, and welcome to Kite Club, a podcast where I'll be sharing thoughts on things like current events, stand-up stories, and 7 ways to pleasure your partner. The answer may shock you. Sometimes I'll interview my friends. Sometimes I won't. And as always, I'll be joined by the voices in my head.
You have 3 new voice messages.
A lot of people are talking about Kite Club. I've been talking about Kite Club for so long, longer than anybody else. So great. Hey, sweetheart, here's it Theo. Anyone who doesn't listen to Kite Club is a dodgy bloody wanker. Do you know what I mean?
Hi, I'll take a quarter pounder with cheese and a McFlurry.
Sorry, sir, but our ice cream machine is broken.
No!
I think Tom Hanks just butt-dialed me. Anyway, first rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Second rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Third rule, like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube, yeah? And yes, don't worry, my Brad Pitt impression will get better.